appears what it is here for RG3, and I'm not trying to be callous. Mike Shanahan, as we mentioned, drafted Kirk Cousins in the 4th round the same year RG3 was drafted. He told NFL Network Kirk Cousins is a franchise quarterback. He'll be a top 10 quarterback in the league, no doubt about it. Your thoughts on that?
I like Kirk. I do. I think he's an awesome guy. He's an awesome dude, extremely smart, intelligent, understands defenses, understands what Jay Gruden wants him to do. He's a guy he's one of these kids and one of these players who I feel like when he was 6, his daddy put him on the little league team and was like, son, you're going to play quarterback, and we're going to learn everything about playing the position on and off the field. So I feel like he fits the position from that point. I don't think Kirk handles adversity well. So to be the quarterback of the Washington Redskins, a team that is trying to improve, but historically, just recent history hasn't been good. You can't throw an interception and that snowballs into 4, which snowballs into 2 in the second half the next week. And if you remember last year, Kirk was pulled for Colt McCoy. The game he started that he's credited with a win, Colt McCoy came in and played from the first quarter on because Kirk was injured. So I think we really have to look at these things. Well, he was injured. Actually, Jay Gruden pulled him.
But then they were both pulled again for RG3, and they went back to him last season.
Well, and also RG3 coming back. Listen, that decision has a lot to do with Mr. Snyder. A big part of the door is not shut on Robert has to do with Mr. Snyder. I think there is some fire to the smoke around people inside the building, football people wanting to move him, and the owner not biting on it, the owner not wanting it to happen. Kirk Cousins, I think, is a solid quarterback. He's a quarterback that's going to do his best to do the things that Jay Gruden wants, which is why he was named the starter. He's not the long-term answer for the Washington Redskins. Can he get him through this season? Will he have some uptimes like the Philadelphia game last year, the Jacksonville game last year? Yes, he'll have games where he explodes, but he'll also have games where he implodes. And if you do those things, if you're not consistent, you can't be a starting quarterback in this league.
Which is why I have come to this conclusion a long time ago and said it many times sitting in this chair. Kirk Cousins will never prove to be anything more than an average at best quarterback in the National Football League. Period. End of story. Jay Gruden better hope I'm wrong about that, because he just put his butt way out on the end of the limb. This is sink or swim. He has chosen Kirk. He has not chosen the quote-unquote now ex-franchise quarterback. I hope Robert goes elsewhere. But he's trying to make Kirk Cousins into Andy Cousins. He thinks he can make him Andy Dalton, Andy Cousins. So I'm going to start calling him Andy Cousins because that's what he thinks he can do with him. And I don't think Kirk is as good as Andy Dalton is.
I think physically he is. I don't know if he has the mental wherewithal that Andy Dalton has, which probably to me isn't exceptional.
No,
but it's better than
it's a little better than Kirk. Okay, so I'm back to Mike Shanahan and that quote. That is Mike Shanahan's pride talking about how Kirk's going to be a franchise quarterback. I reported this at the time. Stephen A. knows the same source that I know, high-ranking Redskin official. We both talked about it. Mike Shanahan, I'll say it again, did not want to draft Robert. He wanted to draft Kirk higher even than they wound up. They felt like they stole him where they got him. But he wanted to go ahead and make Kirk his guy going forward in Washington. And again, they bet the house on Robert, as you know, to move up to the 2nd pick and trade the Rams. You know, all the loot that the Rams got for that. And right now it looks like a big bad mistake because Robert got hurt. But the coaching situation was never positive for Robert. So when your head coach does not want to draft you, he later got on board with it and then bought completely into it and did good things with Robert scheme-wise. But he wanted Kirk Cousins. So now he's standing by his pride, and he's speaking with his heart, saying, oh, he'll be a franchise quarterback, because that's what he was telling Dan Snyder and all the rest of the executives at the time.
It's I told you so moment.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what he's looking for. Definitely. So.
We'll see what happens if he can back that up. But we can't give you the latest on RG3 in Washington without giving you the latest on Tom Brady and Roger Goodell. They were back in court yesterday, and the ruling will come down any day this week. There is no settlement, perhaps any moment. Who will Judge Berman side with? We'll discuss that when we return. Stay here.
Disagree with my decision. It happens all the time. But I believe the course of action we chose really is in the best interest of USC and Steve Sarkisian, and maybe just as importantly, or more importantly, our players.
So that was USC Athletic Director Pat Hayden on Trojans Live on ESPN Radio, explaining why he chose not to suspend USC head football coach Steve Sarkisian after his embarrassing behavior at the Salute to Troy event on August 22nd. Skip, do you have a problem with the way Pat Hayden handled this situation?
Molly, Ryan, yes, I do. Let me just say, more to the point, I'm just not completely comfortable with the way Pat Hayden dealt with a close friend of his and Steve Sarkisian. I've known Pat for a long, long time. Back in the day, I actually covered Pat when he was the quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams out of USC. He's a pretty good quarterback, by the way, for being a pretty little guy. I admire him. I believe in him. I believe in his value system. But he's very close with Steve Sarkisian. I know he likes him immensely. Most people who cover him or meet him, I've met him just recently here. I think
I met him.
You also did?
Had dinner with him.
Did you? You had dinner with him?
Yeah, he was awesome. I was trying to convince him that, hey, I got a son that's a freshman, you know what I mean, going swing down Louisiana, so.
Really?
Yeah,
interesting.
So, I think,
so you would send your son to play for him?
I think after that meeting, you know, I would, depending on how this shapes up. I mean, people make mistakes.
Oh, sure. No, I got it.
So, yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay, so now we're back to what exactly is going on here. If, in fact, Pat Hayden's friend, Steve Sarkisian, has a problem, and I'm not sure exactly how to define it, but if you can define it as a problem,
right,
then as his friend, Pat Hayden should have exercised more tough love and forced him into a sabbatical, into some sort of rehabilitation situation where he needed to go away and fix his problem, if in fact it runs that deeply. I don't really want to hear Pat say, well, I'm told his counseling started off well. That was the quote yesterday.
Right.
What does that mean? Counseling started off well. We've made jokes about the old Riley Cooper situation where he was sent away for the weekend. Yeah. Counseling. Well, what counseling? Well, is that what's going on here? Because Pat was in a tough spot. USC's been down a little bit for a while. Now you have a veteran, savvy quarterback in Cody Kessler coming back, and I saw Sarkisian here and likes his chances, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people like their chances. I'm seeing it all the way up to ranked 4th in the country, but they are a top 10 team, so clearly they have a shot at making the Final Four, the postseason this year. Probably going to win that conference. So do you send away your coach because he has a problem on the eve of what could be a breakthrough season? You'd be back on the national map. It's a tough call. Pat Hayden did what he thought was best for the program, maybe more so than for his friend, Steve Sarkisian. That's my take.
Let's also point out this is the first year they're not under the NCAA sanctions anymore.
Good point.
So Steve Sarkisian, just when I met him, was genuine. He was fun. He was bright. He wasn't behaving the way he behaved there. So I don't know if it's a problem. I've only seen him that one time, and he was fine that night. So for me, I don't know how deep this runs. He came out and said afterwards he didn't have a problem. It was a mix of medication and a mix of alcohol. So I will take him for his word.
Well, he actually said he didn't know if he had a problem. It was his response.
Okay, so
go ahead.
So we take him for his word. He doesn't know if he has a problem. He's going to get help. I don't know if Pat Hayden fell victim so much to his love for Steve Sarkisian as he did his love for the USC Trojans. He's a guy that went to school there.
Yeah.
He played quarterback there. For him to have to live through the Lane Kiffin era and the Lane Kiffin tenure probably killed him inside.
It probably did.
And we're going into a year, Cody Kessler is a guy who's going to be up for the Heisman.
Yeah.
This great interception to touchdown ratio. They're finally ranked in the top 10. People are picking them to make the playoffs, playing in the Pac-12, which is going to be extremely tough division this year. If you come out of there, you probably do make the BCS playoffs. And he was faced with the decision. Do I make the decision that maybe puts my team in jeopardy, my school, the place I love, in jeopardy of not accomplishing all these things? Like you said, we are on the eve of accomplishing to help Steve Sarkisian, when I don't know how deep it runs. You know, he talks about the meeting they had and how forceful he was. And I know Steve got my point. I got my point across very sternly and these different things. I don't know if he was worried so much about getting Steve Sarkisian help as he is about the USC Trojans being a good football team, winning early games in the season, and not disrupting that. So for me, I don't think he handled it well from this standpoint. Whether he has a problem or not, the public perception is whatever you have going on was more important than you being able to function at this important event. So if I'm a kid on that team, if I'm a parent of a kid on that team, and I'm trying to explain to him how to behave, how to conduct himself, how to be an adult and be responsible, be accountable, I can't say that Pat Hayden held him to the standard I would want him to be held as a man who's now a mentor, a coach, the safe keeper of my child while I'm away, while he's at that school. So for me, Pat Hayden has to make a different decision for the program. And if the kids are really who's important to you, you set a tone that not only are you going to be held to a high standard, but the people that we put in charge of coaching you, the people we put in charge of recruiting you are going to be held to a higher standard. So now when Steve Sarkisian sits in the kid's home and he talks about his rehabilitation process and the things he's had to do to be the coach of the USC Trojans, part of it is I made a mistake. I was punished sternly and harshly. I accepted it. I'm better now. And if you go through things, I can also help you. He can't preach that to kids when he sits in their homes. And that's where Pat Hayden made the mistake.
I completely agree. And yet Pat allowed the players, the leaders of the team, to quote unquote punish the coach the way they would. It was a joke. Thank you very much. I was going to say I laughed.
That really was a joke.
Because to punish a coach the way you would be punished for missing a meeting or being late to a meeting by running some sprints or up downs or whatever it is, it's just it doesn't equate. So if you're a player on the Trojan team right now, a leader on that team, have you lost some respect for the head coach?
I don't know necessarily if you've lost respect for the head coach, but here's when you lose the respect. Here's when it becomes an issue. If I'm a player, we win a big game on Saturday night, I'm in LA, I go party, I have a couple, I'm walking down the street, I have disorderly conduct, and now it comes time to punish me. Are you going to make me run? Do they punish me by doing up downs? Or are you going to try to suspend me? Will I be held to a higher standard than you hold your coach? So that's where your issue comes in. How do you discipline players now once they get in trouble?
I think three main points here. Is he protecting his guy? Is he protecting the school? Or are you sending a message to your kids? I just truly hope it's an isolated incident, and that we'll see moving forward. How's Oakland handling this, gentlemen? The Raiders are paying Trent Richardson $600,000 to not play with the team. Ryan Clark believes he knows why.
I can't wait for this.
You gonna tell us? Educate us.